Here's a question: how come autofocus doesn't autofocus? In my last episode, Focus Part 1, I covered the very basics on getting sharp focus before you hit the record button. I realize some people don't have really high-end zoom lenses, which is why I also suggest you use the digital zoom to set your focus. So no matter what lens you have, you won't go wrong using digital zoom to set your focus. If you're confused, just watch the last episode. Now that you have your focus set, you can run into a real problem. If the subject you're filming moves toward or away from the camera, the subject goes out of focus. Before we get into how to correct that, we're going to clear up something that has perplexed new filmmakers since the beginning of digital camera-dom. Autofocus. You get a new camera and it has autofocus. You put the camera on video mode, you point it at someone, hold the button down and it focuses. Looks great. You hit the record button and start filming. The person starts to walk around and you try and follow them and realize that the camera isn't keeping them in focus. So much for autofocus. Well, autofocus isn't designed for that. Autofocus on a camera means I want to point my lens at a certain distance away and have the camera figure out that focus for me. You'll hear the focus ring on your lens move around when it does this. Manual focus means I want to point my camera at a thing a certain distance away and I'll turn the focus ring on the lens myself to figure out the focus. In either case, you're setting the focus based on the distance the subject is from the lens. If the subject moves to a different distance from the lens, your camera doesn't know what to do. This may make you appreciate how cool your eyeballs are. They're always adjusting no matter what distance things move to. A lot of attempts have been made to add a focus system to a camera that will keep the subject in focus as it moves at any distance while filming. A few terms for this are continuous focus tracking, follow focus tracking, and others. This is not autofocus as originally defined for cameras. Using some very sophisticated software in the camera, it tries to figure out the subject you focus on, then tries to keep the camera focused on that same subject as it moves closer and further away from the lens. Amongst others, the Canon T4i made an attempt at this, and though it may be useful in some cases, I've never found it reliable and useful for filming. It's kind of like this. You're filming something, so you autofocus on your subject. Then when the subject moves, you autofocus again. Then the lens hopefully figures out where they went to, the subject moves, another autofocus, etc., etc. It's a cool idea, but it doesn't really work for real shooting and is rather clunky. But wait. There are camcorders that do this exact thing. I point at something and hit record and everything stays in focus. Well, that's because the camcorder is set up so it keeps everything in focus. You point it at your kid 5 feet away and they stay in focus. Well, so does creepy Uncle Ernie at 10 feet away in the background while he's picking his nose, the garbage truck in the background at 20 feet away, and the garbage dump 50 yards behind that. This is great for home movies, but if you want to make real stories and make them look cinematic, you're going to need the subject in your film to be focused as the point of interest, and those things not the point of interest, blurry. In the meantime, camcorders have had to up their game and start adding this feature, the subject in focus and the background out of focus, to be considered a viable solution for filmmakers. You may not know this, but your DSLR camera also has the ability to keep everything in focus while filming like a camcorder. But to make films, you need the ability to set how much of your scene is in focus and how much of your scene is out of focus. You need to be able to tell the camera you want everything in this shoot in focus, like filming a cityscape. You want only the trigger on the gun in focus, like filming a person, and everything around it blurred, and everything in between. That's called depth of field, and it's controlled by another setting on your camera, which we'll cover in part 3. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching. You point your camera at the subject you're trying to film and you hold down the button and it autofocuses. Unless, of course, you're on MF, manual focus, autofocus, MF, AF, MF, AF, MF, AF, MF, AF.